Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Paris. My name is Victor Charpiat. I'm the founder of a company called Kolat. So this is my second time at HCC. Last year, I was here as a lawyer, and I gave a talk about the regulation of DeFi. And of course, a few months after that, at the top of the bull market, I quit my job, and I created this company. So Kolat, basically, it's a company that provides fiat loans collateralized by crypto to crypto companies. So quite classic, but I will explain more. So there is a common thinking without the ecosystem that everything can be done and should be done without using fiat. It's quite right because, of course, crypto and stablecoins are a great way to transfer value without friction, but still, I truly believe that crypto companies still need fiat and will need fiat for many years. That's because stablecoins are not a convenient way to transfer value and make payment in the real world right now. So a crypto company still has expenses like wages, rent, taxes, providers or suppliers to pay. And using stablecoins for these expenses is not convenient because in most cases, stablecoins are not treated as legal currency. Basically, it's never the case. So you always need, at some point, fiat. So a company needs fiat, and to get fiat, they need either to sell the crypto that they have raised or obtained as a revenue, or the other option is to collateralize that crypto to obtain a fiat loan from a lender. So this is what I'm going to focus on. So there is a problem with centralized crypto lenders. Of course, you have still the possibility, if you are very skilled with DeFi, to collateralize your own crypto using DeFi, borrow stablecoins, and then sell those stablecoins for fiat currency. But it's quite complicated, and there might be tax consequences. So I want to focus on the use case of centralized lender that lend to you fiat currency in exchange for your crypto. Basically, they tend to reuse the collateral that you provide to them. It's often in the terms and conditions. So they reuse it basically in three ways. First way is to make collateralized loans to other clients, other borrowers, which is quite straightforward. Second way is to invest it in DeFi to generate a yield, which basically is the same because at the end they want a yield on your deposit. And the third way, and I think the worst, is to lend your collateral to OTC counterparties without collateral. So making under-collateralized loans to basically market actors like market makers and hedge funds. And this is very risky. And they tend to, of course, lack transparency because you don't know exactly what has been done with your collateral, where it's gone. Plus, of course, there is the fact that this activity, where you take the deposit of a client and you lend it to other customers in order to get the best yield adjusted for the risk, this is, in essence, a banking activity. So the risk management here is absolutely crucial, and it has been learned by centralized lenders and banks basically for many years, because for centuries there have been that exact kind of issue, and with the subprime crisis, they had, of course, the opportunity to focus on that. But for crypto, it's much more recent, so risk management is not as professional in these companies as it is in traditional banks. So yeah, they act like banks, but they don't have the same procedures, and this is very risky. So this is absolutely insane. This is an extract from a settlement between the SEC and BlockFi a few months ago. So basically what it says is that BlockFi, during 2 years, had a statement on their website saying that basically all the loans that they make with the deposits of their clients are over-collateralized. But basically they have that statement here I'm going to read it. It quickly became apparent that large institutional investors were frequently not willing to post large amounts of collateral to secure their loans. So basically, nobody wants to borrow with collateral. Everybody wants to borrow without collateral, which is absolutely logic. So they were under-collateralized for a long time while having the inverse statement on their website. So basically, this is insane. Plus, there are other issues. Whenever they invest deposits of clients in DeFi, there is a huge gap between the yield that they promise to their depositors. This is like from Nexo's website yesterday, basically 10% on stablecoins, and the yields that you actually get using DeFi right now. So this is basically the lowest risk strategies in DeFi right now, and the yields are between like 0.5 and 2 or 3%, not 10. So the gap between these strategies is basically covered by companies like BlockFi and Nexo by under-collateralized loans that are made to OTC counterparties, which is precisely where the risk is. And this is not appropriate because DeFi is still very risky. So the risk premium should be like probably around 10%. So you should get, in the lowest risk strategy in DeFi, you should get around 10% a year to cover the fact that even if the risk is low, there is a lot of remaining risk, like even if you use like Aave or Curve, which are audited protocols, you have the risk of using MetaMask, the risk of a front-end hack, and many other risks. So this is, of course, not ideal. So we should try to make collateralized fiat loans more transparent. So how can we do that? What I want to propose is that first, the collateral of depositors, of borrowers, must not be reused by the lender, because the collateral belongs at any time to the borrower. The property is not transferred to the lender. And this is a very important concept, especially in French law. You don't transfer the ownership of your collateral when you put up collateral to obtain a loan. It still belongs to you, and it will only be transferred if there is a liquidation. So basically, that's what I wrote here. Not everything can be decentralized. Making fiat loans basically cannot be decentralized. It will remain centralized for a very long time, but everything or most things can be made more transparent. So how do we do that? This is the proposal of Kolat, which we have been working on for a few months now. And of course, the collapse of Celsius and the near collapse of BlockFi and Genesis has inspired us to move from that model to this model. So the model is quite simple, and it reuses something that is very accessible and easy to use in DeFi right now, which is the Gnosis Safe interface. So basically, you create a 2 of 3 multi-sig address, technically a smart contract, through the Gnosis Safe interface. The borrower sends the collateral to that multi-sig address. The collateral never leaves this address, so this provides transparency to the borrower, because the borrower just needs to look up the address of the contract on Etherscan and just check that everything is still there. And basically, everything that is in that address is the collateral, which is okay. So it allows multiple assets collateral. And then the borrower can reinvest by himself the collateral on DeFi protocols in order to generate yield that will cover all or part of the cost of the fiat loan. And of course, since it is a 2 of 3 multi-sig address, Kolat, or basically the lender or the intermediary, controls and validates all the transactions of investments in DeFi, just in order to control that funds are not going to high-risk protocols. So you might be wondering if that's too risky, because it's easy to evaluate and liquidate tokens like ETH, Bitcoin, or stablecoins might be different for deposits on DeFi protocols. I think it's not the case because basically anything that has a market value and can be liquid can be used as collateral. And the market value of DeFi deposits can basically always be calculated. It's quite important to note that when you make a deposit on a DeFi protocol, in most cases, you obtain what's called like a proof of deposit. So when you deposit on Aave, you get a A token, which represents your deposit. When you provide liquidity to a pool, like on Curve or Uniswap, you obtain an LP token, or NFT if you use Uni V3. And basically, in all cases, these tokens are transferable, so you can directly transfer them into a collateral address, and they have value. The A token has value because it represents your deposit. So, in conclusion, there is that legacy model that we are trying to move away from, and that post-Celsius model that we at Kolat are trying to develop. So the legacy model is a model where the lender is managing the collateral. It's opaque because you don't know exactly what is being done with your collateral. And the risk is basically around the fact that the intermediary or the lender has to select its own borrowers. So the due diligence must be made on counterparties, which is a banking activity. In the model that we propose, the borrower is responsible for the management of his own collateral, which is a big difference. So it's more transparent. It's completely transparent, actually. And the focus on the risk is on the fact of evaluating and making due diligence on DeFi protocols in order to evaluate the risk of these protocols. Because basically, of course, you cannot assign the same collateralization ratio to like ETH in a wallet or ETH that has been deposited on Aave or Curve. So you need to have a discount, and calculating that discount is the core of that new activity. So it's much more similar to a rating agency. So we have time for a few questions. And if you're interested, follow me on Twitter or come ask questions after the conference. And I have some t-shirts if you want. Thank you. We have like 3 minutes.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. You mentioned Kolat validate and control the transaction. What do you mean by that? Is it a signer of the multisig?
Yes. Basically, it's a 2 of 3 multisig. So the borrower has a key, Kolat has a key, and a third party, which is basically a regulated crypto custodian, has a key. So in order to move anything within that address, either transfer it away or invest it in a DeFi protocol, you need 2 keys out of 3. So in any case, the intermediary must control and validate what the borrower suggests. It's more like a suggestion. Kolat does not make the investment or does not propose to make an investment, but controls and validates what is being made. So basically, we have a whitelist of protocols that can, of course, change over time, and we validate transactions.
So you mentioned the methodologies from banks. How yourself you will manage this risk assessment of the protocols and evaluate which one are fine enough?
It's based, so this is quite complicated, of course. A lot of companies have tried to create their own frameworks to evaluate the risk of DeFi protocols. There are a lot of methods. You can look, of course, at the audits, but in most cases, it's not sufficient because the audit it doesn't always focus on the whole risk. It's more like the contract risk and the risk from the code. There is a risk from the tokenomics, for example. A protocol can be exploited at the tokenomics level, and this can create a loss for the depositors. So it's quite broad. So basically, at the start, you basically rely on common knowledge, common sense, which is that the most secure protocols are the ones with the most liquidity on it, and the ones that have been around a long time without collapsing, like Aave, of course, Uniswap, Curve, and a few others. And then you slowly expand from that by like assessing new protocols one at a time in order to evaluate the risk. And of course, you modify the level of collateral based on the level of risk. So you can use a protocol that is more recent and potentially more risky, but just the amount of collateral that you get for that will be much lower than the one you would get by depositing on Aave. Thank you, everybody.